In this lesson, we're going to review factoring. We're going to review how to factor polynomials. It means when you have three terms. And we're going to review how to factor if you have difference of two squares. Now, as you can see, this is something that we've done before, but in order to go into factoring or solving rational functions, you have to be very good at factoring. So let's review. Every time you have a trinomial, when you try to factor a trinomial, there are two methods that you can use. But I'm going to start with the first method, which is the grouping method, and then I'll do over here the big X method. Now let's look at the first one. Every time you want to factor a trinomial, first of all, you have to multiply A and C. So 6 times negative 6 is going to be a negative 36. So what you need to do is you need to try or find factors that can multiply to give you negative 36 and add to give you negative 5. So remember, think of two things you can multiply to give you negative 36, which is the AC, A times C, and two numbers that can add to give you negative 5. Now remember my regular class, you can use the calculator, so you can go into y equals and type in negative 36 over x. Then you go to second table and you try to find all of those numbers or factors that would multiply to give you negative 36, but add to give you negative 5. Now the two numbers are negative 9 and 4. Let's try them. If you multiply negative 9 and 4, you will get negative 36, and if you add them, you will get negative 5. So the two numbers are negative 9 and 4. So what you do is you rewrite. Everything is solved here, but still I'm gonna do it on the space over here. So 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. So you write the first term and you copy the third term, but this term you try to divide it into negative 9x plus 4x. Now again, this is the grouping method. Now by doing that, you have divided the middle term into those two terms, negative 9 and negative 9x plus 4x. Now what you need to do is to group those two, so what's in common between them? Now as you can see, both of them have an x, so x is in common. I'm going to put it on the outside. And the 6 and the 9 are both divisible by 3, so I'm also going to put 3 on the outside. So if you divide 6 by 3, you're going to get a 2. So 2 goes inside. And since you took an x out of this x squared, you're going to be left with only x minus. And then 9 divided by 3 is going to give you a 3. And then since there's only an x, or 1x, and you took an x on the outside, so 2x minus 3 is going to be what's left of the first two. Now go ahead and group those two together. 4x minus 6, I can see that there's a 2 in common, so 4x divided by 2 would be just 2x, and negative 6 divided by 2 would be negative 3. Remember, you can FOIL to check your answers, so 3x times 2x is 6x squared, 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x, 2 times 2x is 4x, and 2 times negative 3 is 6. So they are grouped together in a good way. Now what you need to do is the common between them, which is 2x minus 3, you write it as one factor. And those two, you write them as a second factor. It would be 3x plus 2. And this would be factoring by grouping. Now this is one method. Now I'm going to try to make some space to do the same thing, but in a different way. So I'm going to do it here on the side. I'm going to do 6x squared minus 5x minus 6 using the big X method. Now remember, you have to find AC, which is 6 times negative 6, which is negative 36. So you need to try to find two numbers. When you multiply, you would get negative 36, and you would add to give you the negative 5. So something that would multiply to give you 6 times negative 6, and something that would add to give you a negative 5. Now you can tell that those two numbers are negative 9 and 4. So you write them down, and remember to divide by a. What is a? 6. Divide both of them by a. Now simplify those two fractions. You can simplify by 3, so you will get 3 over 2. Here both you can simplify by a 2, so you get 2 and 3. So then negative 3 over 2 and 2 over 3 are the two simplified fractions. You put an x in front of both of them, since this is 2/3, so it's going to be x plus 2/3. Now remember, the last step is that you do bottoms up. So then the final answer would be, this up. So the final answer would be 2x minus 3 into 3x plus 2. Now again, you can do the big X method, or the grouping method is going to give you the same answer, as you can see. 2x minus 3 into 3x plus 2, 2x minus 3 into 3x plus 2. So whatever method is good for me, so you have to see which one you feel more comfortable with. Now let's try 4x squared plus 4x minus 15. Now remember, in order to check your answer on the calculator, you can enter y1, which is whatever they gave you at the beginning, 6x squared minus 5x minus 6, and y1 as a thin line, and you can enter y2, which is this one, on y2, and you graph it. If you see that they overlap each other, then you're good. It means that your factoring is good. Now, if you have any mistakes, they will not be the same line. Now let's try to, I'm going to erase over here in order to get some space to do this one. Okay, now it's going to take some time. Okay, now let's try this one on our own. It would be a good time to pause the video and try it. I'm going to do it both methods. Method 1 is the grouping method. Grouping methods. Okay, so what you need to do is to find AC, which is 4 times negative 15. And if you multiply those two, what are you going to get? You are going to get a negative 60. So think of two numbers. When you multiply, you would get negative 60, and when you add, you would get the middle number here, which is 4. So add to give you 4. Now the two numbers might be 10 and negative 6. Let's see if it works. So 10 times negative 6 is negative 60, and 10 plus negative 6 is plus 4. So these are two good numbers. So let's copy this whole thing. Now to factor, you copy the first term, you copy the last term, and the middle term you divide it into 10x and negative 6x. Now what you need to do is you need to try to group those two together. So you have to find the GCF, group those together and those together. So I can see that 2x is in common. I forgot to put the x, so 2x are in common. So if you divide this by 2x, you will get a 2x. And if you divide this by 2x, you will get a 5. Now FOIL to check. Now 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 5 is 10x. Now let's look at the second one. You can see that the negative 3 is in common. So negative 6 divided by negative 3 is a 2x. And 15 divided by negative 3 is 5. Now let's FOIL to check. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x, and negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Now take those two, 2x plus 5, common between those two, and then those you put them outside as 2x minus 3. Now this is the grouping method. Now let's try to do the big X method. Now try. Remember to put y1 as this and y2 as this. Thin line, thick line. Press graph, and if they overlap, then your work is right. Now this is the big X method. You're going to get the same answer. Now let's move on to the next lesson, or whatever we took also before, and it's difference of two squares. Now what does difference mean? Difference means there's a minus in the middle. Refers to the subtraction sign between the two terms. Difference of two. Two means you have two terms. Squares, it means each one of them should be written as a perfect square, or they should be perfect squares. Now let's see. 16 for square is a 16. And x squared, you can just put it as an x. 25 can be written as 5, and y4 can be written as y2. Okay? This means that you have to do 4x minus 5y squared as one, and 4x plus 5y squared as another. I don't know if it makes sense to you. This is something that we did before, so let's try this on our own. 49x squared minus 4. As you can see, there is a difference. There's two terms, so the difference of two apply. Now we have to check if they are squares, if they are perfect squares. Let's see. can you rewrite 49x squared as a square of something? Yeah, because the square root of 49 is just 7, and you can, instead of x squared, you can just put an x, and you can put the 2 on the outside. Let's see. 7 squared is 49, x squared, and this is it, so we're good. Minus, can you write 4 as a square of something? Yes, you can write it as 2 squared. So as you can see, I do have a difference. I do have two terms, and they are both perfect squares. So 49x squared can be written as 7x to the power 2, and 4 can be written as 2 to the power 2. So if the difference of two squares applies, it means you have to rewrite it as the first minus the second, so 7x minus 2, and then you write the first plus the second, 7x plus 2. And that would be it. Now let's do this one together. Try not to look at the work. Now 16 can be written as 4 x to the power 2. Let's check. 4 to the power 2 is 16. X to the power 2 is x squared. So that's good. Now 25 can be written as 5. Okay, now you can write y4 as y2. Remember, 5 to the power 2 is 25. Now y squared to the power 2, remember, if it's a power to a power, what do? You multiply them. So 2 times 2 is a 4. So there is a difference. We have two terms, and they are both can be written as perfect squares. So you would rewrite it as the first. So the first minus the second, and then the first plus the second. And again, to check your answer, you can always put this in y1 and this in y2 and press graph. If they overlap, then that would be your answer. So this is a review of something that we've done before: factoring and difference of two squares. I hope it makes sense. If you need to watch the video again, please do. We will have a whole hour of reviewing tomorrow in class, and you have to understand this very well before we start our next lesson, because you need to be able to factor to solve rational functions. See you tomorrow in class.